It's Tuesday night, and you know what that means. A special edition of Real Talk is coming to you live here on the 2nd of September. Happy September, everyone. I want to thank you for tuning in here from wherever and however you may be doing so. And certainly, ladies and gentlemen, I'll continue to be the generational talent in Garden State media because, folks, my level of honesty, now more than ever, is truly necessary in this era of journalistic deception that we all know is coming from establishment and legacy media. But guess we'll never lie to you. That's right. It's me, Fernando, Uribe. Once again, folks, happy Tuesday. A special Tuesday night edition. Again, as hopefully you all celebrate a wonderful Labor Day weekend, the end of summer, as we like to call it unofficially. And once again, thank you for tuning in from wherever and however you may be doing so on all of your social media platforms. And if you not done so already, it takes a few seconds, folks. We appreciate the support. Make sure you like us on Facebook, of course. All the pages are listed there. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and X. And also make sure you subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. Like, comment, and share tonight's episode. It makes a big difference, folks, in getting the content out to more people. As we all know, it's always about the algorithm. We're trying to get ahead of it here on Jersey First TV every single week. And whether you get your podcast on Spotify or SoundCloud, hey, do me a favor. Download Jersey First onto your channel. And of course, you can check out our content when it drops every single week. So again, maybe you know what? Even as you're maybe still going to Tiki Mondays every Monday down to Point Pleasant at Tiki Bar, or you're just, hey, maybe you're just doing some last minute school shopping for your kids, those school uniforms, school supplies, whatever it is. I'm pretty sure that you have your smartphone with you. Check out Jersey First. And more importantly, check out Real Talk with Fernando Uribe. And folks, again, front and center, I'm always proud to represent what I would argue the leader in independent media here in the great city of New Jersey. It is, folks, Jersey First TV. I'm always educating and advocating for the residents of the great state of New Jersey. Again, you can check out brand new episodes live every Monday, of course, on our regular scheduled time. And, of course, check your local listings for start times every single week. Folks, you definitely want to stay tuned for final thoughts. I have a lot to say, of course, and, of course, to thank all of you for another successful month here on Jersey First TV. Folks, 48,000 plus organic views on the show, on the podcast, not propcast, like some illiterates can't pronounce it correctly, but the podcast. So, of course, whether you're tuning in on Facebook, of course, Instagram, YouTube, and, of course, most importantly, on X, where it seems like everyone's gravitating to X these days, all organic views. Thanks to everyone that takes the time to watch it live, of course, and of course, share the replays throughout the week and share your support with comments and feedback every single episode. We'll talk more about that later on during the show. But folks, again, during final thoughts, you want to stick around. I have a little dissection about the latest antics from some of the clowns in Hudson County and those that supposedly call themselves journalists. They're more like propagandists. That's right, folks. Leonard Filipowski, of course, have a lot to say about some of the people that he associates with and that associate with him. I want to think about distancing himself after some latest antics online that I'm happily will be able to point out and break down later on during final thoughts. Folks, also speaking about from one clown to another, hey, we can always rely on the buffoonery going on in the city of Hoboken. Of course, we can talk about what's going on in the current administration and certainly those looking to succeed Ravi Bala for mayor coming up in Hoboken. And, you know, obviously you can see there the illustrious crowd within Team Bala. To no one's surprise, folks, the prom queen, Emily Jabor, of course, Mr. Charisma himself, Jim Doyle, of course, the guy who likes a little bit too much alcohol, a little too much, too often, Joe Quintero, and of course, the, perpetual crybaby, Phil Cohen, of course. We'll all talk about them and really the disservice they're doing to Hoboken, folks, especially when it comes to crime. I don't know about you, folks, but, I keep hearing and reading commentary online and looking at stats and looking at incidents going on in the Mile Square City. Whether you're a woman, a man, a child, a babysitter, folks, not really safe to be walking around Hoboken these days. And you can thank these people behind me. And I'll tell you more about why they're just shameless in their defense of really bad policies in the city of Hoboken. So again, stay tuned for that. And also a special commentary on, quite honestly, the biggest crybaby in Hudson County politics, and that's Phil Cohen. We'll talk about Uncle Phil a little bit later. But folks, again, it is election season here on the program. And of course, I'm talking to candidates that are making a difference and making some noise. And it is, listen, we all got to celebrate Labor Day And now everyone's sort of back in the groove, got their political eyes back on the ball here. And certainly we have municipal races. Of course, we have a very highly contested gubernatorial race. All 80 state assembly seats are on the line. But folks, at the local level, a lot of interesting municipal races going on all throughout New Jersey, but especially here in Hudson County. We have a mayoral race in Kearney, New Jersey, in Secaucus, New Jersey, in Guttenberg, New Jersey, a little bit south of me in Jersey City. But right next door, the city of Hoboken, a highly contested race coming up on November the 4th. A lot of candidates. I've interviewed some already. Some are remaining. But you know what? It's important to hear from the candidates as election day is 63 days away. I want to talk to one of them. Folks, the distinguished, again, Dini Ajmani joins us live right now on Dini. How are you? Welcome to Real Talk.
Thank you so much. Thanks for inviting me.
Appreciate it. And again, folks, if you haven't done so already, please go to www.diniforhoboken.com. That's DINIFOR Hoboken.com. Don't forget to follow her on Facebook, of course, also on Instagram and X. You can subscribe to her newsletter, let you know about what's going on in the Mouse Core City. Dini, welcome again. Appreciate your time here on the show. How was your summer?
Wow. When you're campaigning for a mayoral office, summer is all about campaigning. I took 4 days off and went to Iceland. But the entire time, I'm checking my website, I'm checking my Instagram. So there's really no break from campaigning even when you're away. But I'm glad it's over and everybody's back and I can make my case to them.
And listen, it's election season. It's well underway. 63 days to go. We're coming really into the horizon, as they say, as the finish line is right around the corner. So let's talk about that. I got the chance to look at your site as I was prepping for the show today, talking to my production assistant. And, again, Dini, in a nutshell, I love the way you sort of phrase this. And I'll just sort of read it for my audience here. Hoboken's budget is broken. We're getting priced out of the city that we love. And I think that really encompasses the problem that's going on with Hoboken for a lot of lifers that grew up there, went to school there, try to set up businesses. I mean, it is pricing everyday Hoboken residents out. And one thing is to put it on a website as a slogan, but let's delve into the bread and butter here, the meat and potatoes, as I like to. I'm a policy nerd. Let's get into it here. What's the first thing you'd like to address should you be elected in November and certainly take office in January?
Sure. Somebody said this to me one time, and I thought it was so true. They said, the answer is money. Now tell me what the question is. In the end, how a city is run is going to be based on how much money city has. And it comes down to the budget. The problem with Hoboken's budget is year after year, the council spends more and more and more. And then when it comes to budget vote, what they try to do is they try to find these gimmicks. These gimmicks could be, let's sell a piece of land. Gimmicks could be, let's take some money from the library or the parking utility. The gimmicks could be, let's do more pilots. Or the gimmick could be, let's go raid the surplus account, which is usually the rainy day fund that every city is supposed to maintain. Now what has happened is all of those gimmicks have been used and they don't have any more band-aids left. So I think in the rare moment of candidness, even in the council meetings, some of the council members have acknowledged that the taxes need to go up a lot. Well, when the taxes go up, the city becomes even more unaffordable. Whether you are a homeowner or you're a renter, in both cases, you're going to be spending more on housing. So the first thing I would do if I get the opportunity to be the mayor is get our budget in order. And it's not that hard. I've done it at the state level. I know how to do budgets. So I just hope that I get the opportunity.
Now, having said that, and folks, again, if you just joined us live right now, it is 5:39 on the East Coast. It takes 5 seconds. Trust me. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to Real Talk here on Jersey First TV. It'll get the show out to more people tonight. As my guest is one of the mayoral candidates running in the city of Hoboken, Dini Ajmani, joins us live right now. Again, check out our website, diniforhoboken.com. Dini, you mentioned about budget, and certainly, obviously, you have a great background, certainly being Deputy Assistant Secretary to the U.S. Treasury, certainly an Assistant State Treasurer for the state of New Jersey. You have a lot of government experience. I think that without a doubt, the buzz I keep hearing is that, those two positions really puts you in really in a prime position to bring that expertise into governing. One thing is legislating when you're on the city council. One thing is when you're governing from the mayor's office. And I think the reason a lot of people call me and say, hey, listen, Dini's got a real shot here. Don't sleep on Dini. And I always say, listen, don't sleep on anybody. If they're out there knocking on doors, going to food festivals, going, holding town halls, printing up a newsletter, getting information out to people, they're in it to win it, as they say. But, when we talk about budgets, it's interesting. Again, listen, it's a nonpartisan local election, but, I'm the only, I'm really the only conservative podcaster in the echo chamber, as they say here in New Jersey, in the North at least. But I'm always about fiscal conservatism and fiscal responsibility. It just seems that the city of Hoboken in recent years has been sort of the poster child for fiscal irresponsibility. I mean, again, there are some people on the council that have never met a tax that they don't love or spending that they don't salivate over. Am I wrong here?
No, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. In fact, in one of the council meetings, I remember one of the council people said, let's not conflate spending with budget. Well, how can you not talk about spending when it's talking about budget? Spending is what budget is. I think the place where the budget goes totally awry is when it comes to negotiating labor contracts. And this is not just a Hoboken problem. This is a problem I think a lot of blue cities and blue states have come to realize as they're losing their population to red states and red cities. Is what has happened is that unions are in pole position to negotiate very generous contracts. These union leaders, they're doing their job. Their job is to get the best deal for their members, and that's what they're trying to do. The problem is the mayor and the council. What ends up happening is, in an effort to seek the endorsement from these unions, they are eager to give away whatever unions need. So when you look at the police contract, for example, that got signed not too long ago, it's an 8-year contract, and the first 4 years are fine, but then last 4 years, the force is going to get 10% salary increases guaranteed. Who among us has such a guarantee that our salary will go up 10% every year? None of us, right? But what it does is it strains the budget to a point where there is really no money left for other things. Other things like cleaning the streets, other things like maintaining the parks. So the citizens start to complain, and then to satisfy them, you have to raise taxes. You raise taxes, now a lot of people will get priced out and they have to move out of Hoboken. So I think the core issue when we talk about budget is, how do we get there? How do we get to a place where we are at the edge of a fiscal cliff? We get there because we have these very generous labor contracts. We get there because we give tax breaks to developers. We get there because we have no understanding of pension and healthcare costs that are exploding, not only in Hoboken, but other blue cities and blue states as well. And so I feel, having worked in Democratic administrations for Phil Murphy and then President Biden, is I have a good handle of how to be a good Democrat and yet be fiscally responsible.
All right. Well, Dini, you're kind of giving me a softball down the middle of the plate here. As a conservative, sometimes when I think about Democrats and fiscal responsibility, it doesn't always seem to go hand in hand. With all due respect,
May I point out to you, Bill Clinton, the first president in a long time who actually left the office with a surplus. So when you get the right leader, you can do it.
Listen, don't disagree whatsoever, but let's be fair. It's a long time ago for the Democrat Party, since the days of Bill Clinton, right? I think it's it's pretty far away, I would say. But no, but point taken. Certainly, I think about the importance of, and listen, I'm someone who's worked in government forever, education. I understand about the cost about health benefits, pensions. I get it. I understand completely what goes into that. And especially at the local level, what we're seeing, I would argue, with this current administration. And listen, good riddance to Ravi Bala. Now, unfortunately, he's the problem of the legislature coming up next year. But unfortunately, what you're leaving behind is an awful track record. And, it seems like certainly the heir apparent, one of your opponents in this race, I think, seems to sort of have that disconnect. And, there's nothing wrong in Hoboken. What we're doing is fine. We're on the right fiscal path. It just seems like that level of disconnect is what is turning a lot of voters off in Hoboken, where, again, this is not an indictment of you per se, but I talked to a lot of people that have come up to me and said, Fernando, this Hoboken race is so unappealing. It is just blah. It is just lame. It's not very eventful. And when I hear that, I grow disappointed because I know that there's a lot of Hoboken residents, to your point, that are feeling the crunch in their pocket. They're making decisions where, hey, I was born and raised here, wanted to raise my kids here. I might not be able to do that anymore because it's just pricing residents out, especially with what I would argue is overdevelopment. It just seems like developers look at Hoboken and say, hey, if there's a square inch of footage, I'm going to try to develop on it. And in the end, it's regular people in Hoboken that are really the casualties.
Mhm. And those developers, they're most welcome if they were to pay property taxes, right? The worst thing is you allow a developer to build a building. I'm sitting right now in 770 house. This is my home. It's a 400 plus unit building, and we're all paying $5,000 or more for a two-bedroom, and yet the developer doesn't pay property taxes. So when one entity doesn't pay property taxes, guess what? Taxes for everyone else goes up, right? So rest of Hoboken is not going to pay higher property taxes because then this one developer is not paying any taxes. And why does that happen? That happens because our campaign finance system is so broken that people feel that they must take contributions from these developers and their endorsements to be able to present themselves as a viable candidate. So you look at my opponents and you will see almost every developer in their contribution list. You've got Bijou Properties, you've got Meridian Properties, you've got Iron State, you've got name any developer in Hoboken, and they have given money to one of my opponents. From the very beginning, I had decided that I would not be beholden to the unions and I would not be beholden to the developers. So I'm not taking any help from them. And that way, I'm going to be liberated from any strings when I'm the mayor and I'm serving the residents.
Fair enough. Again, great points there in the sense of separating yourself from your opponents in the field here. Also, I mean, again, looking at your website. Once again, folks, if you just tuned in live right now, again, like, comment, share, subscribe. Tonight's episode of Real Talk is my guest is Hoboken mayoral candidate Dini Ajmani joining us live here right now on the show. Folks, drop a comment or a question in the comment section. We always welcome feedback here on Real Talk. Obviously another big word, another P word that gets on my nerves about Hoboken. We talk a little bit about property taxes, and that's the dreaded P word, parking. And as someone who, among my circle of friends, I'm someone that always finds parking everywhere, for whether it's in Alphabet City in Lower Manhattan, to Bay Ridge in Brooklyn, downtown Jersey City, or Hoboken. I find parking everywhere. Maybe I'm gifted that way. But in all seriousness, Hoboken residents are feeling that crunch. We're seeing developers kind of go crazy again with these buildings. We are seeing more and more people trying to move to Hoboken. Again, its proximity to Manhattan, Lower Jersey City, the financial district. Again, it's an attractive place to move to. Having said that, a lot of people just feel, well, I'm going to move somewhere. I'm going to take my car. It doesn't always work out that well for them, whether it's the parking enforcement authority that is, if you're breathing and your car is maybe like 30 seconds over the meter, you're getting a ticket. But in all seriousness, though, parking, candidates will talk about, well, I know I can fix parking, but let's separate fact from fiction. What's a realistic approach to trying to remedy parking in a city as densely populated as Hoboken?
In any situation like this, you have to see the supply, but you also have to look at the demand. So yes, the easy solution or easy answer to your question about how do you increase parking would be, let's just build more garages. And I'm not saying no to that. In fact, I look at the ShopRite parking lot. I can see it from my house, and it's a huge piece of land that's just sitting there. And I'm sure in a public-private partnership with ShopRite, one can build a garage that'll help the residents as well as the shoppers. But you also have to look at the demand side. Why is it that we have 6,000 parking spaces and we have issued 12,000 permits? If you look at who all can get permit, you would be very surprised. For example, you may not know this, that as soon as you turn 62 in Hoboken, you are now entitled to 2 parking permits for free. So It's a rule that's, or it's a feature, an arcane feature from a long time ago, when you were in your 60s, you were entitled to having a caretaker come and take care of you, and they would need a parking permit, so you could get two parking permits. Where are those parking permits going? I've heard people give their permits to contractors. I've heard people give their permits to commuters that they know who are out of town, but they want to park in Hoboken. So you have to look at who all have these permits and then question, do we really have the luxury of giving out so many permits? I'll give you an example. Somebody is visiting me right now and they're going to spend a week here. For $37, I can get them a 1 week long permit. Where are they going to park? They're going to be competing with the rest of the residents looking for parking. They should be parking in the garage. That's where their car should be, but it's not, because this permit is so much cheaper to get from HPU than parking in the garage. So what I would do as mayor is not only look at how we increase the supply, but also look at why is it that we have, in some locations, 3.5 times more permits than the parking spaces available. So that's what I would try to do.
Dini, it sounds like very commonsensical, rational, and a logical approach to parking. And I think the way you just broke it down for my viewers tonight checks off all those boxes. Why aren't your opponents saying these things out loud?
I think my opponents have spent half a century being on city council. And this mentality develops, which I see when I attend these council meetings, of an inside parlor game. It's like they're fighting among themselves over small stuff and missing the big picture. There are times when it feels like it's a horror show I'm watching. I just get up and leave the city hall because I just cannot take it anymore. But I think they've all been sucked into this internal politics, the inside game, the inside parlor game, and they have forgotten that they were given the responsibility to take care of residents, not just themselves. And I think that's why I decided to jump in. Listen, jumping in is not easy. You put yourself through scrutiny, you put your family through scrutiny. Your days and nights are overwhelming. You don't take it easily, but I couldn't sit on the sidelines because I looked at the field and I thought, no, not these people. I can be the alternative.
Fair enough. Now, when we talk about parking, another issue, again, because it's sort of related and it's motor vehicle related specifically, and it's something that I have been talking about this program forever because I've seen such a rise, and it's almost an infestation where cities like Hoboken, Jersey City, towns near me in northern Hudson County, um, it's e-bikes, and quite frankly, the absence of safety when it comes to e-bikes. I understand people need to make a living. I get in a post-COVID world. Um, jobs have changed dramatically. Obviously, people aren't working as remote anymore. People have to go back to work physically. But when it comes to certain businesses, e-bikes have become the norm in the sense of disseminating products and services. And what I'm seeing in cities like Hoboken, and it's aggravating to me where the mayor, and again, when the mayor isn't virtue signaling or bitching and moaning about the president of the United States, or members of his council entourage are doing the same thing, it just seems like very self-evident things about public safety as it pertains to e-bikes and everything else should be commonsensical. I mean, we need to sort of crack down. I mean, again, I don't want to sound punitive about this, but I think the only way we're going to make a dent in this is to ultimately be punitive against these e-bikers and sometimes even these companies that are hiring them, because what they're doing is creating an incredible public safety hazard, not just in my township where I live in, but in Hoboken specifically. I'm seeing people on the sidewalk, and I'm going to be honest with you. I'm one of those people, if I see somebody near me, my first reaction, just because of my jujitsu training, is I might clothesline somebody because I think someone's coming after me. Now, of course, I won't do that. I'll show some restraint. Or if I'm driving and suddenly I have to make a turn in my car or open my car door, a lot of these e-bikers don't care.
Yeah.
And I think residents have reached out to me and say, Fernando, please cover this. Fernando, please, in the way that you can, make a stink about this, cut a promo, rant if you have to. Is there a solution to something as complicated as this?
There definitely is. There definitely is. Now, this is an example of how 4 years later, 4 years since this problem started, we still haven't found a solution. The solution that they came up with is just not enforceable. The solution was have them come and register, put a vest on them, and then start enforcing while nobody showed up for registration and nobody's wearing a vest. What you have to do is instead of going after the e-bikers, go after their livelihood by reporting them to the apps that hire them, right? So you don't need registration. They all walk around with this phone, and the phone is a unique identifier, right? So if you want to call their employer like DoorDash and say one of your e-bikers is breaking the rule, you just have to give their cell phone number. And that way the app can then deprioritize giving those e-bikers who are breaking the rule in the order system, right? So you get fewer orders if you have a bad record. We see this working with Uber, right? So Uber ratings are very helpful in terms of determining which drivers are good and which drivers are bad. What we haven't done is help these apps responsible. We keep going after the bikers, we're not going after the apps. What New York City has done, I think, is very clever, which is they've told the apps in every zip code you can only have these many e-bikers. So what it does is takes away a little bit of pressure off the e-bikers to compete for those microseconds in terms of delivering the order. And it also reduces the congestion around the tree pits and in front of the city hall and in front of, the benches. And so other cities have tackled it much better than we have tackled it. Again, I'll bring it back to the acrimony that exists within the council members, where instead of being solution oriented, they just want to play this one-upmanship game. And when they do that, we residents miss out.
It's interesting you bring these examples up because at the end of the day, residents are they're really hungry. And again, excuse the pun because we're talking about Grubhub, but they're really hungry for solutions here, Dini, that seem to make sense, that are just pragmatic, that aren't overly complex. Listen, I'm the last one that ever wants more government in anything.
Right.
But I'm also understanding that at the local level, government is failing people. And I think that if you had to really summarize one of the underlying messages during this mayoral campaign in Hoboken, is that for many years now, okay, we go back to whoever's looking to succeed Ravi Bala. We look at Ravi Bala being the succession of Don Zimmer. I mean, these are years and years of bad policies that have failed Hoboken residents. And it just seems to me that, you know, whoever's trying to take the mantle now, coming up in 63 days, especially, if you're in the Bala administration, I just find it hard to believe that residents, and I get it, you have like, these local Hoboken moms groups and, whatever, that sit at home and I'm sure they're watching the show now and they're 2 bottles of wine in, whatever. But it just seems like regular, everyday Hoboken residents um, are just being done such a disservice. And it just seems like the biggest underlying message in this race would be Hoboken City Hall is failing you. And what I'm hearing from you tonight seems to be one of the more pragmatic and I think commonsensical solutions, or at least policy prescriptions, that I'm hearing.
Thank you. No, that's high praise, and I really appreciate it. Listen, like I said, I just couldn't sit on the sidelines. I remember my husband one day listening to my rant about how broken City Hall is and how they are beholden to special interest. And he asked me, he said, if not you, then who? If I, with all the privileges I have, with no parental responsibilities since kids are grown and gone, with financial security in place, with all the experience I gained working for the senator, the governor, and the president, if I then decide to sit it out, then I have nobody to blame but myself for the next mayor and the leader we get for the city.
Fair points there. Now, let me ask you this, though, because again, you have extensive government experience, so Dini. And again, no, let's have some fun here. I like to be fair to everybody. Even though for people that check out my social media, I like to make a lot of jokes at the expense of progressives and the woke crowd and all the social justice crusaders and all that. And I think Dini at the local level now, again, in a race like this, I would argue that the national conversation, I think, really is irrelevant here in terms of what's going on in Hoboken. Whether it's, excuse me, we're seeing it during the gubernatorial election now, and we're seeing it even at the local level. Like, here's a news flash, and again, I know you're not going to mention them by name, but I will. News flash to Tiffany Fisher, to Ravi Bala, to Emily Jabor, to Joe Quintero, to Phil Cohen, to Jim Doyle, and sort of the rest of the entourage in Hoboken, or even other people that consider themselves to be, Democrats. It's not Donald Trump's fault that, I don't mean you. I mean, when I say you or your, I mean this
Yeah,
generically. It's not the president's fault that property taxes are skyrocketing in Hoboken. Okay.
it's true.
It's not the president's fault that, crime continues to go up. More folks, and by the way, more on that during final thoughts. So you want to tune in for that. Why people are scared to walk in Church Square Park. It's not the president of the United States' fault. It's the same thing at the state level here for those running for governor or anything else. The problems in Hoboken are not conducive to Donald Trump, folks. It's conducive to bad governance. And it starts, and again, I don't want to just say Democrats in Hoboken, but it starts with the incumbency in Hoboken. And it's just interesting to me how, there are those out there, Dini, that sort of harp on this again. And you worked for two administrations that, again, if I'm being intellectually honest and I'm calling balls and strikes here fairly, did a disservice to me, as a property owner in New Jersey. My property taxes have skyrocketed on a national level. Obviously, we saw what a disaster the Biden administration was, but at the local level, it's crazy to me how some running for office, though, Dini, think that it's a good playbook to be like, well, property taxes in Hoboken are high and crime is rampant, but Trump. I just think it's lazy, Dini.
It is. It is. And who are they serving when they do that? They're only serving themselves, right? So their strategy is to be the candidate who's going to fight Trump. Well, get your house in order first. If you are running a city in a way where it doesn't attract attention because the crime is down and the taxes are down, people will leave you alone. But they want that attention because it raises their profile politically. I'll use Sanctuary City as an example. You very well know New Jersey State is a sanctuary state. No mayor needs to announce that their city is a sanctuary city because the entire state is a sanctuary state. And yet in 2018, in preparation of probably some of the future runs, political runs that our mayor was going to indulge in, here he is with a directive saying, Hoboken is a welcoming city. Who is he helping? Is he helping us immigrants or immigrants who work in our restaurants? No, they don't want the spotlight. Is he helping the taxpayer? No, because now our grants are under threat. He was only helping himself.
Well, listen,
And that is the sad part of the whole situation, that they all have their own personal agenda, and that's what is important, and the residents come second or third or fourth.
Dini, I think you nailed it right there. I mean, listen, Ravi Bala, the ink wasn't even dry upon taking office, and again, it just seemed like this incessant need to virtue signal and to pander. And listen, you and I might disagree on this. I mean, as a conservative, I think the sanctuary statehood in New Jersey, I think, is a disastrous policy. I make no bones about it. Again, my opinion. Again, we can agree to disagree if you want, but it just, I think that's one of the big issues coming up in this gubernatorial race. But at the local level, it just seems like mayors, whether it's Ravi Bala in Hoboken, Stephen Fulop in Jersey City, Ross Baraka in Newark. I mean, I just think that you know did people on the left or Democrats not learn anything about last November, Dini? Like the idea that you know conservatives like myself across all demographics, Hispanic, Black, Asian, Pacific Islander, women, men, I mean, voted overwhelmingly for a person that said, hey, crime's a disaster. We're seeing what the harm that illegals are doing to our country and our state and even our cities. And I think that someone like Ravi Bala, and you're right, I think that it was just perfect to run on as he chose to do. And certainly, very likelihood. I mean, it'd be nice if a Republican could have seen him in November. I don't know about that, but it'd be nice. But in all likelihood, Ravi Bala is the next assemblyman representing the 32nd legislative district, and he'll continue virtue signaling, and he'll blame Trump if they run out of paper in the copy room at the State House. He'll blame Trump, and that's just all he lives for. But at the local level, though, it just seems that it's a bad policy. And again, I don't want to put you on the spot about this, but does rescinding sanctuary statehood for a city, would that make a difference in this race for any candidate to say that openly?
I don't know. I think the directive is quite clear from the AG that New Jersey is a sanctuary state, which means that our local police cannot cooperate with ICE. I really don't think a mayor can change that. Even if the mayor is diehard anti-immigration Republican, I don't think they can go against the directive, which is why any kind of statement, whether our mayor puts out or any other mayor puts out, is just futile. It's a press release not worth the paper it's printed on. So I would rather use the energy to clean the streets and to remove the dog poop and remove the e-bikes from our sidewalks, balance the budget, those things where my effort will actually bear fruit, than have these futile exercises of attracting attention just because I am politically ambitious.
Well said there. I might have to use that quote. I'll make sure I credit you on it in future broadcasts when I talk about good old Uncle Ravi. You mentioned about, again, quality of life. And I know that's a big component of your campaign, Dini. And folks, again, if you're just joining us live right now, like, comment, and share tonight's episode with my guest live right now, Dini Ajmani, running for mayor in the city of Hoboken, coming up in 63 days on the 4th of November. The rat problem continues in Hoboken, Dini. And I don't mean the rats employed at City Hall. I mean, I'm talking about actual physical rodents that are a public health hazard to our kids, to our seniors. Again, it's back to school week. Kids are walking to school. Parents are dropping off their kids. I mean, we're seeing a lot of commerce on Washington Street. And it just seems like the priorities in Hoboken just continue to be misplaced. And again, I don't want to offend anyone here, but there are parts of Hoboken, Dini, that are just turning into an absolute shithole because of this sort of neglect. And, when we look at rat infestations, when we look about pest control, again, not just the pests that work at City Hall at desks at on Washington Street, but I think that from a public health perspective, is it, you can't wave a magic wand, but what would a Ajmani administration look like in trying to address public health and pest control in Hoboken?
I'll do two things. Number one, we've asked our residents to have bins that have a lid, but our own public trash cans are open. Right? So first thing you do is you replace the trash cans that the city has put around the neighborhoods with something that has a lid on. The second thing I would do, and this is an interesting idea that some of the other cities have tried, there is food that attracts rats, but the food is such that it makes the male rats impotent. Now, rats only live for 1 to 2 years. They have a short lifespan. If you can make the male rats impotent, in 2 years, you won't have rats. The thing is that all of this requires money, but our city is so tight on money. It's spent all its money on, like I said, giving tax breaks to developers, on labor contracts and such, that it really has so few resources to do something innovative and smart to take care of the rat problem. And one of the things that I would do is study this more and see how we can get that food that makes male rats impotent here in Hoboken and spread it around neighborhoods where we have infestation.
That's interesting. I did not know that.
New York City is trying it. New York City is trying it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, obviously, you have rats at City Hall there too. Obviously, working inside the building, not just the infestation.
Your words, not my words.
No, I know. I can say that on the air though. But I wasn't aware about the lifespan about rats, and that's a really interesting perspective about how to prioritize nullifying the ability to reproduce for these rodents. And obviously, we're seeing. To your point, obviously some methodologies that are working across the river. It'd be refreshing to see that here in Hoboken. Getting back to
There are 500 municipalities just in New Jersey. Everyone deals with the same problem. First thing you do is you learn from others. You see who has dealt with something in a way that you can replicate, and you do it. You don't have to be innovative from scratch. You don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time.
Okay. Listen, again, I like to learn new things, and that's what we do here on the show. Dini, let me ask you this also. Obviously, running on November the 4th, certified as a candidate. Obviously, you met all the thresholds for signatures and everything else. Tell us more about your ticket here, because obviously it's not just you running, but
Yes.
you're running with a ticket. So tell us about your running
Yes.
mates, and quite frankly, what separates them from others running in this race as well.
Sure, sure. So we wanted to give Hoboken a fresh start. So one of my criteria was to not select someone who has run before or is entrenched in Hoboken politics, where they get sucked into the daily headline of who said what. So the three people on my slate, Nick Gorka, Kim Gittens, and Shashi Kamlani, all are running for the first time. They all are professionals. They all have big jobs in the city or otherwise. Kim has managed retail stores. At one point, I think she had 1,300 stores that she was managing. Nick is a private equity guy. He used to work. He worked for Blue Owl till very recently, and Shashi is an executive at Marriott Hotels. So all three of them have had very successful and are in the middle of very successful careers, but they also have this calling for public service. Shashi has two small kids, 2 and 4. Kim has raised her son here in Hoboken. Nick just got married. He's all of, I think, 35, 36-year old, and a chronic renter in Hoboken, and just got tired of dealing with all the problems a renter faces in Hoboken, which is exorbitant increases in rents while the place is falling apart. So, having these three people who've had varied experiences, are very successful in what they do today, and then bring them on board to serve the public, I'm just very proud of this ticket.
Now, in assembling this ticket, certainly you already sort of broke it down where you wanted running mates that were not entrenched in Hoboken politics. Some would argue, though, Dini, that maybe getting someone like that on the ticket would be beneficial just for name recognition. Was that ever under consideration, or did you really just want to stick to this, grassroots, organic type of movement and see how, let the cards fall where they may?
Listen, I'm a newbie at this. I'm a rookie myself, so I considered everything. I definitely considered reaching out to some people who have run before and such. Where I paused and I hesitated was this feeling I had that if you pick somebody who's been around the political circuit in Hoboken for too long and therefore has picked up some enemies, all of their enemies become your enemies. So that very thought that I may pick somebody who has pissed off some people and now all those people are like, no, there is no way we're supporting Dini. I just didn't want to be in that situation. I wanted to give residents of Hoboken a really, truly a fresh start.
Dini, we know that based on ordinances that were passed by the council some years ago, the municipal races will return to where I would argue they should have never left, and that's in May. Certainly, having the election coming up now in November, I think, makes it a little bit, I would argue, a little problematic. Certainly, you have a hotly contested gubernatorial race, you have assembly races all throughout New Jersey, certainly Hoboken being a part of the 32nd legislative district. It's fair to say that that district will remain blue. Unfortunately, with people like Ravi Bala and Katie Brennan, all but certainly winning coming up in 63 days. But at the local level, I mean, do you feel that it's going to be helpful to go back in 2029 to municipal races being back in the spring as opposed to the fall, where maybe it just, again, obviously in this election cycle and this media cycle, that it's hard to forget there's a municipal race. But do you feel that those municipal races are better served during the springtime as opposed to right before Thanksgiving?
I may disagree with you on this one. I think
Okay.
whatever maximizes turnout
Okay.
is the way to go. And if a governor race brings out more voters and they happen to find candidates for municipal races on their ballot, and therefore they do some research and they vote that way. The problem in our country is apathy. I'm no fan of policies that Zoran Mamdani has put out. No, I've been a markets person all my life. I know price controls have been tried in countries like Russia and Argentina and Venezuela, and they always fail. But I must say, my daughters are excited about him. So I'm just so glad to see that the younger generation, the Gen Zers, are, whether they're watching him on Instagram or they are following his speeches or whatever, they think he brings the change they have been seeking for a long time. Like I said,
Well,
I I am no fan of his
no,
policies,
neither am I. Yeah, neither am I.
but what I learned from his candidacy is that this country, at the local level, at the governor level, the mayoral level, at the presidential level, has been looking for change.
Listen, without a doubt. Listen, no disrespect to your daughters or Generation Z, but we were all 18, 19 years old once, right? And we were easily brainwashed by, oh, these great ideas that have never worked in human history. And again, I don't want to sort of delve into like name calling whether someone's a communist or a socialist or a Democrat socialist or whatever. The point is that it's interesting in this election cycle, though, that uh, how easily I think I would argue how easily manipulated I think anybody from any age group. It's not just Gen Zers. I think you have millennials, you have some boomers that are still sort of drinking the Kool Aid some 50 years later about ideas that we all know don't work. Again, and maybe listen, I might not be the most objective person to talk about this. I'm the son of a Cuban mother. I know firsthand the evils of
There you go.
authoritarianism, like real authoritarianism, not the bullshit accusations that Ravi Bala and Katie Brennan and these other idiots, bitch and moan about. Like real authoritarianism, I know what it's about. But having said that, at the local level, you raise a great point about policies that just can't work. And again, at the local level in Hoboken, Dini, one of the things we've seen since COVID, obviously, a lot of businesses did not return. It's been hard in Hoboken for some small businesses to thrive. Even nightlife, I know, is taking a hit a little bit. And then there are different variables for that, too. But we saw that, the current mayor almost made it a mission to drive out nightlife out of Hoboken, to not make it a nightlife destination where, let's be honest, Hoboken has been for more than half a century. Having said that, people at City Hall would love to sort of continue that process and those policies. I would argue that it's not healthy. I think Hoboken thrives from nightlife. I think Hoboken thrives from hospitality and the service industry. But I think there has to be some sort of middle ground where City Hall can welcome new commerce, but at the same time, not be overly invasive either, which is what I would argue this administration has done for at least 2 terms now.
I will completely agree with you on this one. I love it when I see young people crowding the streets at 1 a.m. in the morning. I mean, that is Hoboken. That's why we moved here. It's the energy, it's the excitement, all of those things. I will say this, and this is not a Hoboken problem, but a national problem. What we are finding that our youngsters have less and less money in their pocket to spend on fun things. Such a big part of their compensation now is taken up by rent, utilities, streaming services, the fixed cost. There's so little is left for what's called walking around money. Let me just hop into a bar, let me just get a cup of coffee, let me get some ice cream. All of those things have to take a back seat because the discretionary money that they have in their pocket is just dwindling. So the cheaper thing to do is to go home, order from Grubhub, and then watch Netflix. And that's what we see our young people doing. And it's very sad to see it because,
Correct.
the friendships that get formed when you playing pool with a stranger at a bar, those are important friendships. The disease that we all are going to suffer from is going to be loneliness, because digital stuff can only help you for so long, and in the end you need human connections.
Well said. Well said there. Dini, before I let you go, I know you've been stand up tonight to be on the show with me as long as you have. I appreciate the
Thank
conversation
you.
we've been having. Certainly, because of the number of candidates, it's almost all but certain that there's going to be a runoff coming up in
Yes.
December. Having said that, and this is maybe the sports fan in me, where I like to analyze some things, but certainly I know you'd like to be in the runoff in December. Who worries you the most of the field of contenders that you're going up against?
I am running my campaign with the blinders on in some ways, just focusing on my message, my policy. You asked me, a lot of policy related questions. You could probably tell I think about this stuff a lot.
Sure. Yeah.
What I'm not wasting time on is who could be. I don't know. That's up to the voters to decide. I am just here with a message, presenting myself as an alternative, and hoping that people will notice me. That's my goal.
Okay. Listen, I appreciate the honesty there. I think that's a very smart, concerted effort by you to sort of focus on you, and you should. I mean, obviously, when you focus on your opponents, I mean, it tends to maybe take away the heat and momentum from you in what you're doing. Having said that, certainly, what I would argue, we've seen the 8 years of a disaster of Ravi Bala and what he's done to Hoboken with his administration. Um, would you venture to say out loud? And listen, maybe you'll take the high road. Maybe I don't know. We'll see. I won't. I don't have to. But isn't it a bit disingenuous for members of his slate to run for reelection when they've been a part of why Hoboken has become such a disaster? Like, I'll sort of say it bluntly. I find it incredulous that someone like the prom queen, Emily Jabor, and Sleepy Joe Quintero are going to run, and what are they going to run on? Like, Hoboken's a mess. You've had a hand in Hoboken becoming a mess. You've had a hand in Hoboken turning into a shithole. What possible credibility can you run on? And it's mind-boggling to me how there are voters out there that are willing to give them a chance after 8 disastrous years of Ravi Bala. And I get DMs and emails and phone calls and voicemails all the time where people are like, are they serious? How can they run when they've contributed directly to the demise of Hoboken, Dini?
I'm doing my part. I'm
Okay.
presenting an alternative. That's the best I can do. I can say to voters, you don't have to. You don't have to go with status quo. You don't have to go with people who brought us here. Here is somebody you can learn about, and maybe they're a better alternative. And that's the best I can do. Rest is up to the voters.
Fair enough. Dini, you have a business background. Obviously, again, you understand budgets and everything else. In a Ajmani, you know, administration,
Mhm.
is it realistic to perhaps look at a few years down the line where there have been ideas about a pool on the waterfront for residents, perhaps trying to convince Apple to open an Apple store in downtown Hoboken? God knows, I mean, I think it'll do well commerce wise. Are these things that are realistic from the mayor's
Yes,
office moving forward?
very much so. Very much so. You just have to prioritize these things. I'll use example of an Apple store. One of the things I learned when I was in Trenton is the importance of economic development. It is not by fluke that we see so many movies getting filmed in New Jersey all around, right? Hoboken and other places. That's because at one point the administration in Trenton decided this was going to be their priority. They were going to bring film industry into New Jersey. At Hoboken level, we can do the same. Why is it that our stores sit empty for so long and the commercial real estate owner is losing money year after year? The King store in 333 River has been shut down for 4 years. Why is that? Why don't we go out to a grocery store like Sprouts or Italy or some small grocery store and ask them to come to Hoboken? That requires a mayor who's going to put together a presentation singing praises of Hoboken and the people who live here and show these businesses an opportunity that they would like to utilize. Look, we are very affluent. Look, we are very young. You know, this is the age where you want to set habits. Imagine selling an iPhone to a young person who will then be addicted to it for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
So I think what it requires is mayor to wear the economic development hat instead of the hats that, as you said, our current mayor has worn.
All right, fair enough. Dini, before I let you go, a quick lightning round. We've gotten to know Dini Ajmani, the candidate, but let's get to know Dini, the mom, the woman,
Sure,
the regular,
sure.
the regular everyday Hoboken resident. So a quick lightning round here, and whatever comes to mind, we'll discuss very briefly. All right, so let's go
Okay.
here. Are you a sports fan at all?
Golf.
Okay, favorite golfer and why?
Scotty Schaefer.
Okay. What's your handicap? Have you played
Oh,
recently?
I used to be obsessive golfer, and then one day I hit 42 on back nine, and I'm like, I'll never do better than this, and I quit.
All right, good stuff. That's what I like to hear. All right, good stuff. Good stuff. Okay. Um, best thing about your daughters.
They love me.
Okay, listen, doesn't get any better than that, folks. I think that's as concise as it gets.
No,
Favorite food.
they're wonderful human beings. That's what I love about
Well,
them.
listen, they take after their mom. I think it's painful. It's evident there without question.
Mhm.
Favorite cuisine and restaurant you like to visit.
Mexican, and I'm slowly getting addicted to that new place that opened by the PAT station. I don't even know the name of the place. Sometimes they call it Hoboken tacos, then they call it Mexico taco.
Okay.
It's the one that looks like Los Tacos,
Okay.
but it isn't. It's right next to my office, and I love it.
Okay. After a long day of knocking on doors, maybe phone banking, talking to people, when you come home, favorite cocktail.
Ah, given up on drinking.
Wow, you have. Okay,
I
good for
have.
you. Hey, listen, kudos. You'll certainly have a better liver than a lot of us. That's for sure.
Well,
Um,
it's not that I don't get tempted. In fact, I just said given up on drinking, and 2 days ago I had a glass of champagne because we were celebrating our daughter's engagement.
oh,
But it just doesn't sit well with me anymore, so I don't drink
sure.
very
Okay.
much.
Well,
Yeah.
well, congratulations to your lovely daughter again. Best wishes to her. Obviously, in her marriage coming up. Deanie, favorite travel destination and why?
I just came back from Iceland and I have not seen a more beautiful place. It's almost like the nature took its best work and put it in a small space. The volcanoes, the waterfalls, the lagoons, the mountains, the beaches. Amazing. 4.5 hour flight from Newark and
Okay.
you're there. And it's just, yeah, best place
So
I've ever been.
it's a 4 hour flight from Newark to Reykjavik, right?
Yes. Yeah,
Wow.
4.5 hour, I think it is. Yes.
Wow. What was the weather
Yeah.
like over there?
We were there peak summer. High was 55 degrees, so you had to wear a light jacket all the time.
That's beautiful.
But the lagoons are so warm and toasty. You jump in and it could be raining on top of you, but you're feeling great.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Deanie, again, I want to thank you for your
You're
time.
very welcome.
Certainly, I appreciate your candor here. And again, folks, please visit Dini4Hoboken.com. That's DINIFOR Hoboken.com for more information. You're looking to donate your time or any disposable income to her campaign, support her and her council candidates. Certainly make sure you follow her on Facebook as well as Instagram and X. Dini, it's been a great conversation. You
Thank
see,
you.
you see, I'm not so bad as a conservative, right? I'm not so toxic and evil as
Yeah.
maybe I'm sure you'll get some shit over your appearance today. But I appreciate your time. I'll give you the last word here tonight on Real Talk.
No, thank you so much. It's like I said, I want to get my message out there. I will go on any platform, conservative, liberal, progressive, whatever it is. My message is very simple. You've had these people in council and the ones who are running for mayor now. Together, they've spent 57 years in the
Wow,
council. And look where we are. If you still want this, yes, choose my alternative. But if you don't, take a look at me. Take a look at the website. Take a look at my Instagram reels. Take a look at my newsletters. I'm a serious candidate in the sense that I'll do serious work for the residents of Hoboken.
Well, Dini, to use a sort of common phrase, since football season's just starting this week, you're not leaving any points on the board. I mean, you're out there, you're working. God bless you. Certainly, again, I
Thank you.
wish you the best of luck. And listen, should you be successful coming up, in a runoff, and then in January, do you promise to come on regularly on this show again? I want to make sure I have you back on. Can I get you on the record for that?
I'll come on at least one more time. How is that?
Okay, fair enough. Dini, I appreciate your time. Folks,
Thank
she
you.
is Dini Ajmani, running for mayor in the city of Hoboken. You have options coming up on November the 4th in 63 days. Visit DiniForHoboken.com for more information about her campaign, her policy prescriptions, and where she stands on the issues that matter most to Hoboken residents. Dini, have a great rest of September. We'll talk to you again soon here on Jersey First TV.
Thank you very much, Fernando.
Thank you. Take care. Folks, good stuff there with Dini Ajmani. Again, we appreciate your time. I know I ran a little bit long, but again, I like to ask questions. I want to get to the core of every candidate and their campaign platform. So I do appreciate your time after a long day. Certainly quite the stand-up lady to be on with me. Almost an hour. I appreciate that. And I appreciate her candor and her dialogue and her conversation. And that's what matters, folks. During this election season, you want to hear from candidates. You want to hear what their platform's about, what's going wrong in the city that they're running for when it comes to mayor, and what they can do better. And we heard that tonight from Dini Ajmani here on Real Talk. Folks, programming note, we will hear from Michael Russo in the coming weeks here on the show. Certainly not sure if Tiffany Fisher want to come on. I've reached out to her. Who knows? I know the prom queen, Emily Jabor, will not come on here, and why would she? God forbid she has to answer some tough questions. But again, that's the difference in candidates, as they say during this election cycle. I've talked to Ruben Ramos earlier this year. Hope to have him on in the coming weeks leading up to November the 4th. So, again, folks, you have options in the city of Hoboken. And certainly, again, obviously, with Labor Day in the rearview mirror, we're paying attention to local races, legislative races, and, of course, the gubernatorial race here in the state of New Jersey. Folks, it's 6:30 here on the East Coast. We appreciate you tuning in live here. Again, like, comment, and share tonight's episode. It does really a great job, and it helped get the content out to more people. And certainly that helps with the algorithm here on the broadcast. So we appreciate the live. Look at the numbers now. Live, looking really nice. The numbers continue to be very strong every single week. Folks, it's what you've been waiting for. It's time for final thoughts. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, just when I think that, Leonard Filipowski can't embarrass himself any further. And that says a lot because this clown embarrasses himself almost hourly. But what's interesting, and not just obviously, the fact that this picture will live forever on the internet here. Like, whoever thought it was a good idea for a grown man in his late 70s to take a picture on a motorcycle with white athletic socks, brown shoes, dress pants, and a tank top. Again, I would never claim to be the epitome of a physique, but folks, I'll tell you one thing. If you check out my socials, I make it a point to try to live a healthy lifestyle. Do cardio, do all the things that help you to stay and remain healthy, which is more than I can say for some locals in Hudson County. More on that in a moment. But if you're going to, again, Leonard, in your late 70s, if you're going to be on a motorcycle wearing a tank top, at least make sure you don't miss arm day and chest day and traps day at the gym. But what's interesting about Leonard Filipowski, folks, is the fact of who he surrounds himself with and who he's gone to bat for in this sort of media echo chamber that he claims to think he has a monopoly on. And there's been no shortage of idiots and clowns that have openly embraced Leonard Filipowski since he's been really occupied a permanent residence, as they say, in the Hudson County media echo chamber since December of 2023. Well, what I find interesting is not just who he endorses or who he supports, but who supports him and vice versa. And yes, we've seen during this primary season that, of course, he made an ass of himself openly campaigning for candidates, failed candidates like Tony Hector and Frank Alonso, right? Harassing public officials, hardworking public officials like State Senator Brian Stack, former Governor Jim McGreevey, current Bayonne Mayor Jimmy Davis. But that's his shtick. That's his gimmick, folks, to harass people. But the minute you get his face, oh, I mean, believe me, he starts menstruating worse than, I don't know, some of my ex-girlfriends who live to bitch and moan. But what's interesting about this week, folks, and what I really wanted to bring to your attention, it's not so much really the people that he supports or coddles and likes to, speak highly of or say, oh my God, these are my supporters. These are people that I'm so proud to align myself with. Really? Be careful who you align yourself with, Leonard. It's a bad look for you. And it's interesting because whether it's you and others that took considerable joy and satisfaction over the summer, right? We had local cat ladies and obnoxious lesbians and insufferable feminists like, Caleb Burrell and others in Hudson County activism that were attempting to cancel me, which obviously I'm still here today on September the 2nd. But a lot of you in that little sort of sphere were rejoicing about shots taken at me, whether it's comments in the HUD Post Instagram page or website or Facebook page, or attempts to try to cancel me altogether because of my attempts to host a Mayoral forum in Jersey City. Yeah, you're all fans about cancel culture and, you know what? Denouncing people that supposedly are perceived to be bigots. Well, folks, there's nothing bigoted about Fernando Uribe. There just isn't. I don't dislike gay people. I don't dislike trans people. I'm not going to subscribe to people's delusions, which again doesn't make me a homophobe or a transphobe. But Leonard Filipowski is more than happy to pile on people when there are accusations about bigotry against other people. And Leonard, don't think it went unnoticed when you were happy to pile on when others were taking shots at me over the summer, which is fine. I'm a big boy. I get it. I'm the generational talent in media in this state. So I know people are going to are coming after me every second of every day, and that's okay. I can deal with that. I don't get all sensitive and, all menstrual like you do. But what's interesting about Leonard Filipowski is the idea that you want to, again, pile on others that are being accused of bigotry when we all know there are no examples of bigotry that you can cite. Just because there are those in the alphabet mob and the Rainbow Army that think I'm a transphobe because, I choose not to subscribe to the ludicrous and delusional notion that men can become women. No, they can't. And I get it. There are clueless idiots within the Hudson County echo chamber, right? Whether it's activists, organizations, whether it's Hudson Pride Center, whether it's the Jersey LGBTQ Alliance, right? Whether it's insufferable activists like Liz Scheidel, Laura Bustamante, Caleb Burrell, a bunch of obese women that, obviously have plenty to say about me on social media, but it's not even about that. But it's the idea that just because you don't like hearing something doesn't make someone a blank phobe or a blankist. But when there are clear, concrete examples, Leonard, those are the ones you should be denouncing. And what I find interesting, it's the ones that you're not denouncing that kind of make me question, well, how consistent are you? And how intellectually honest are you? And how philosophically consistent will you ever be? When you have fans of yours who openly, obviously, are illiterate, who the only machine they've ever looked at in a gym are the vending machines. It's not like they're ever hitting a cardio machine. But these are the type of fools that support Leonard Filipowski regularly and seem to put him on this pedestal as some sort of accredited journalist, which he isn't. So whether it's broke asses like this or others like retirees like you know, former police officers that can barely read and write. These are the people that, again, you align yourself with. So you're quick to denounce other people, Leonard, when it comes to, oh, someone's being accused of being a bigot. Really? When you can't cite anything that's bigoted about Fernando Uribe. But you know what's painfully evident about bigotry? When you align yourselves with clowns like this, who, again, there's no reason to interview people that aren't relevant. And just because you maybe cut videos on social media with maybe 100 views, I'm sorry, that doesn't make you someone that's a content creator or relevant. You can sit there, you know, with a microphone and shaking like, I don't know, like you're coming off some high from, I don't know, from heroin or something. I don't know. Right? I mean, when you have guys that look like meth addicts like this one behind me, I mean, again, these are the people that Leonard Filipowski will gladly and openly be champions for. Well, Leonard, how much of a champion do you want to be for people who are openly racist and bigoted? You know what they say, birds of a feather, they flock together. So how do you explain despicable social media posts like you see there from someone that you have associated with openly and publicly, and someone who openly and associates with you very proudly, supposedly? Can someone tell me how this is not a blatantly racist social media post by an illiterate, broke ass living in public housing? Who, by the way, this is a podcast, not a propcast. Okay. I mean, you got money to buy championship belts, but you don't have money to like maybe download like a spelling app or a grammar app or something. Folks, again, we've seen in the news cycle, we've seen that a North Bergen police captain engaged in what was a blatant motor vehicle violation. And he was issued a citation for it. But somehow local illiterates think it's cool to poke fun at police officers and make an inference. Folks, you can see the inference there. Taking a jab at our hardworking chief of police in Union City. But what's even more despicable is the assertion that the police officer that issued a citation to someone, again, engaging in a blatant motor vehicle violation on Kennedy Boulevard is somehow a monkey or a chimpanzee, excuse me. How is that even acceptable? When, to the best of my knowledge, my understanding is that the officer who issued the citation is African American, is black. So to the illiterate living in public housing in Union City on 39th Street, how is this an acceptable use of your time? And we all know that when it comes to making memes like this, well, we all know that the illiterate that lives in public housing relies on retired police officers, like, you know, those that teach at a driving school. I mean, folks, this guy can't even read and write. I mean, imagine this illiterate teaching you how to drive and operate a motor vehicle. Who thought that was a good idea? That's public knowledge that these memes that are made at the expense of people, and listen, by the way, I mean, it's pretty lazy and lacking creativity when they're made at my expense. I mean, I get it. I live rent-free in your heads, and, you know, you avidly stalk my social media. But how is it even remotely possible, folks, that this is acceptable? And for Leonard Filipowski, that's always denouncing what he thinks is corruption or racism or sexism or bigotry. Where's the outrage from Leonard Filipowski about people? And again, it's the same 3-4 people liking the same post. It's not like illiterates that live in public housing like Jose Garrido get like multitude of people liking the social media posts. That's not the case. It's the same people, right? It's Ernie Rivera-Batiz. It's Jose Garrido. It's a bunch of other clowns that somehow maybe click like because they're bored on their social media feeds. Where's the outrage from Leonard Filipowski about this openly and blatantly racist post? Can someone explain that to me, please? Can someone explain to me how this is acceptable? So the next time you see Leonard Filipowski with his usual fake outrage, and if you see him, go up to him and ask him. Make sure you do it from a reasonable distance, because he'll think you're invading his personal space, and he might want to press charges on you. Ask him. Do you want to take the opportunity and denounce blatant racists and bigots like Jose Garrido and Ernie Rivera-Batiz, who we all know are responsible for memes like this one? Can someone explain that to me? Can someone explain to me how this is acceptable and why someone like Leonard Filipowski, who seems to be a champion of the people, well, Leonard, I mean, don't just talk about it, be about it. You're all about denouncing bigotry, right? You're all about denouncing racism and prejudice, right? Why aren't you denouncing these clowns? Why aren't you denouncing these illiterates? It's a bad look for you, Leonard, among other things. So I'd be careful about the company you keep here. Again, when you have illiterates like this guy who, I mean, when you watch his videos and you see him shaking, it's like, wait a minute, are you like, did you not get your fix today? Did you not go score some smack and now you're coming down from that high and now you're crashing? I mean, can someone explain it to me? But folks, these are the individuals that prop up Leonard Filipowski. These are the openly and blatant racists that support propagandists like Leonard Filipowski. So I don't know about you, Leonard. I mean, I'd denounce this immediately. You want to object to police officers doing their jobs? Okay. I mean, hey, if God forbid the North Bergen police captain caused a motor vehicle accident and no citation was given or no enforcement was given, you'd be the first one complaining about, oh, Union City police officers aren't doing their jobs. You'd be the first ones to say that, when we all know the Union City Police Department is one of the best departments in the state. So there's no way to win with Leonard Filipowski. And there's no way to win either when you have illiterates like this guy supporting you. And for a guy who is as lucky as this guy to live in public housing, okay, who bitches and moans about, oh, what a shaft he was given, and oh my God, what a disservice has been committed unto him. You know, for illiterates like this guy, he should thank the Lord every day he gets to live in public housing. He should thank the Lord he gets to drive around his little rinky-dink car whenever he leaves this house, which isn't very often. But these are the people being champions and crusading for Leonard Filipowski, and vice versa. Leonard Filipowski is crusading for illiterates and open racists like this. Leonard, you should know better. I can't say the same for Jose Garrido and Ernie Rivera-Batiz. These are just idiots. These are just plain, unadulterated, illiterate idiots who somehow think making memes and taking shots at people. And what's interesting, again, and sort of full disclosure here, folks, I would never claim to be the most physically fit person, but what I try to do is stay healthy. What I try to do is engage in a exercise regimen that'll try to keep me healthy. And whatever I wear to jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai training, I mean, that's my business. I mean, hey, if you have issues with a tire, go talk to my instructor and see how well that goes for you or others. And for you and Ernie Rivera-Batiz to publish, again, memes like you did, why don't you grow a set and go talk to Officer Middlebrooks and make reference to that meme to his face. I don't think that'll work out well for you. But again, folks, these are the people, these are the locals supporting clowns like Leonard Filipowski. Okay? A guy like this whose tits are sag more than most grandmothers is going to tell you he knows more than you do about what's going on in local politics. Makes you wonder, folks. Always look at the source and where the grievances are coming from. And you'll learn very quickly they're not to be taken seriously. And that's something we should really know about Leonard Filipowski and those that associate with him. And if I were Leonard, I'd distance myself from racists like this. Again, folks, birds of a feather flock together. I wonder how the people of color that live in the housing complex with this illiterate behind me would feel about how he references that he makes about people of color. That makes you wonder, right? Maybe someone should let the neighbors of color of this illiterate, maybe they should let him know how he feels about people of color when he's posting memes like that. That makes you wonder, right? May not go too well for him. But don't worry, Jose. Keep hopping along. Keep crashing from your, meth fixes. I mean, how else can you explain it? When you look as bad as this guy does. And yet has the audacity to make fun of others. If I look like this guy, I wouldn't leave the house. But then can you? Or are you just going to hobble along with your two bad ankles? Something to think about. Folks, speaking about useless. From one useless local to another, let's talk about useless people in government, and let's talk about Ravi Bala. And let's talk about the people he associates himself with. Whether it's the prom queen, Emily Jabor. Whether it's the charisma vacuum, Jim Doyle. Whether it's, the guy who's never been a liquor cabinet that he's never loved, Joe Quintero. Or, of course, Mr. Personality himself, Phil Cohen. More on Uncle Phil in a moment because I really have a bone to pick with this idiot and how much of a whiner he is. But more on that in a minute. But what I wanted to do is sort of go into one of the biggest talking points about this election cycle in Hoboken, folks. And you know what that is? It's about crime. Okay? Now, doing some homework, obviously, over the weekend, certainly, I want to give a shout out to Hoboken Girl and their content, and certainly, talking about trying to find Hoboken crime stats. And I think that you'll quickly learn that you'll be as frustrated as Hoboken Girl was in trying to get clarity about what's going on in Hoboken. But folks, and I'm not going to read you the article. You can read out, again, you can check out HobokenGirl.com for this good piece of investigative journalism. But I think it's really, really interesting, folks. It's the fact that what you see is sort of like the blatant dishonesty by the detective bureaus in Hoboken and the Hoboken police in general when it comes to their social media reporting. Saying that Hoboken PD takes these matters very seriously and remains committed to ensuring the safety of all in Hoboken. That's bullshit. That's absolute bullshit. We all know it. We can see the crime stats, or what's an attempt at producing crime stats. Folks, we have eyes. Social media and our smartphones allows us to see what's painfully obvious. Okay? So whether it's robberies on the rise or assaults or public drunkenness or vagrancy or just potential sexual assaults, folks, Hoboken has turned into a shithole. It just has. It's turned into a shithole. So whether it's being reported on Hoboken Girl or, for example, another good page you can check out online, Hoboken Weekend on Instagram, you can see right there, obviously, that the local mommy groups will always have something to say. Now, again, folks, we all get it. A lot of the stay-at-home moms and the moms for action and some of the cat ladies and the Karens that, avidly stalk social media and make sure that no one's making fun of the Bala administration. Okay. I'm sure they're watching the show now, and they're about 2 bottles of wine in right now. I'm sure they're finishing. They're probably popping the cork in a 3rd bottle. These ridiculous lushes in Hoboken. Folks, crime's a real problem. It just is. But again, what does Ravi Bala and the current administration in Hoboken care about? And more on this in a minute. But what do they care about in Hoboken? They care about virtue signaling. They care more about pronouns than property taxes and public safety. Folks, that's the fact. And no amount of pride festivals, no amount of flag raisings to accommodate and coddle the alphabet mob and the rainbow mafia is going to convince anyone otherwise with eyes, with working eyes, that Hoboken has become a shithole during the Bala administration. Now, Ravi Bala had his sights set on bigger offices, and good for him. He ran with another inseparable Karen and cat lady and Katie Brennan, and they're more than likely soon to be the next assemblyman and assemblywoman in the 32nd Legislative District. But what Ravi Bala leaves behind is an awful legacy of caring more about pronouns than property taxes and public safety. Blown alone in his pants about Donald Trump than actually caring about what matters to Hoboken residents. He's let e-bikes run amok. He's let the rats run wild in Hoboken, not just the rats working in City Hall, but the actual rodents that create a public safety hazard. And thank God for pages like Hoboken Girl and Hoboken Weekend and others that are doing the reporting better than the Hoboken Police Department. Again, nothing, and don't get it twisted, folks. I'm as avid a supporter of law enforcement as there is in media in New Jersey. Okay? So shout out to all the hardworking men and women in the Hoboken Police Department. But if you're being handcuffed by an incompetent administration, then that's a problem. And the ones who suffer are Hoboken residents. Okay? And during this election cycle, what we have is somebody, the prom queen, Emily Jabor, and we all know the Hoboken mommies and all the Hoboken mom groups and all that. They're all blown a load in their pants about, oh my God, let's support Emily. Yay, Emily, the prom queen. And of course, Joe Quintero. Again, Joe Quintero's nearby. Lock your liquor cabinet. Trust me, you'll thank me later. But folks, what's interesting is that crime is a serious problem in Hoboken. It just is. And the Bala administration hasn't taken it seriously. Do you think a Jabor administration is going to take it seriously? You think Joe Quintero running with Emily Jabor, you think him being on the council is going to take it seriously? No, they're not. They haven't. But that's the state of affairs in Hoboken, folks. Where again, drag queen story time, flag raisings, repainting the crosswalks for the rainbow mafia. That's what takes precedent in Hoboken, folks. Or fixating on the president of the United States who's trying to keep our community safe. And as my guest tonight so eloquently put it, yes, with all the problems going on in Hoboken, why not do something to make yourself more politically ambitious and engage in grandstanding? That's what Ravi Bala did in January of 2018. And he continues to do. Because, of course, folks, again, with Hoboken property taxes on the rise and taxes going up, somehow Ravi Bala, Joe Quintero, Phil Cohen, Emily Jabor, and Jim Doyle want you to believe that somehow it's Donald Trump's fault. No, folks, it's not. It's their fault. They just want to distract you from that by virtue signaling and sort of evoking national politics when we all know national politics has nothing to do with why Hoboken has gone to shit. And a perfect example of this, of course, is, one of Emily Jabor's running mates, Mr. Personality Joe Quintero, published an op-ed today Let me just sort of go through this. And I thought this was very interesting. Let's sort of, go through this here. Now, again, shout out to John Highness with the Hudson County View for publishing great op-eds on a regular basis. Of course, all the great news coverage that you can have come to expect with when it comes to the Hudson County View, it's there every day. So make sure that you bookmark it and make it a part of your daily news consumption to always check out HudsonCountyView.com. The latest editorial by Joe Quintero, a letter to the editor, was interesting, talking about Joe Quintero and Uncle Phil Cohen, and taking a jab at second ward councilwoman and mayoral candidate Tiffany Fisher, and of course her running mate, for perhaps being detrimental to the local cannabis business in Hoboken. Now I'm going to read you this bullshit editorial. I mean, you can, if you need something to help you fall asleep tonight, read it. It's fine. It's there. You can read it on HudsonCountyView.com. But you know what's infuriating about people like you, Joe? With all the problems going on in Hoboken, it seems like you're more concerned with coddling all the potheads in Hoboken. Now, full disclosure, I've never smoked weed. I don't care to. I never will. It's not important to me. But here's a newsflash, Joe, and to Phil as well. Coddling and acquiescing to potheads in Hoboken isn't exactly what should be on your priority list. Again, it should be property taxes and public safety, not pronouns, not coddling potheads in Hoboken. But folks, that's why these are not serious candidates. That's why Joe Quintero isn't a serious candidate. That's why Emily Jabor is not a serious candidate. Because all they're trying to do is continue the disastrous 8 years of Ravi Bala. And who wants that in Hoboken? I mean, you must be a serious kind of stupid. And you must be dedicated to a certain level of stupidity that I hope I never, ever stoop to. If you want 8 more hours, 8 more minutes, 8 more seconds, much less 8 more years of anything having to do with the Bala administration. But that's the kind of joke that we're seeing in Hoboken. And folks, don't get me wrong. I'm not the biggest fan of Tiffany Fisher sometimes when she has her little Trump derangement syndromes and her antics online. I mean, I get it. She's not making that part of her platform, thank God. I mean, I had to endure her on social media last year with her usual TDS nonsense. So credit to her. She's not engaging in that. But what Joe Quintero and Phil Cohen are doing with this editorial, folks, is simply grandstanding and distracting from issues that really matter. I don't give a shit about coddling potheads. I don't care about cannabis. I don't care. I understand it brings a certain revenue to the city. I get it, but hasn't it gotten squandered? Okay. Hasn't it gotten squandered? I know it has. But that's what we've seen, folks, in the city of Hoboken. Which brings me, obviously, to more incompetence. Obviously, as you can see there, what a perfect backdrop. Because when I think of Hoboken, I think of flooding. And when I think of flooding, I think about being flooded with shitty candidates. And folks, can we think about 4 more shitty people to represent Hoboken? Yeah, I can't think of them. But another shitty person representing Hoboken, of course, is Phil Cohen. And Phil, again, I want to take this opportunity because it seems like you've gone on my radar. And newsflash, honey, that's not a good place to be. Let me tell you a story about Uncle Phil. Now, again, I've never heard of this, whether it's Asian or the stereotype. I've never heard of that. But somehow Phil Cohen takes exception to when I make fun of his nose. Well, Phil, how about this one? I could go after your 33-pound head if that makes you feel better. But somehow Phil Cohen would like you to believe that when jokes are made at his expense, I mean, when you look at him, I mean, obviously the least photogenic person you've ever seen. But no, Phil, when I make jokes at your nose or your head, no, that's not anti-Semitic. I know plenty of people. I know John Van Vliet from Insider NJ, not Jewish to my knowledge. That guy's nose is bigger than yours. I mean, and that's saying something. Okay? Imagine being stuck in an elevator with Phil Cohen. You could easily pass out from oxygen deprivation because of all the oxygen just going into his nostrils. But again, Phil, that doesn't make me an anti-Semite. I have a big cranium too. I don't think it's 33 pounds like yours, but I mean, I have a big cranium. Now, if someone decides to take a shot at my cranium, does that mean they're anti-Cuban or they don't like Cuban people? No, folks, it doesn't. But that's the level of juvenile behavior. And that's the level of just infantile behavior that we've come to expect from Phil Cohen. No, Phil, I'm not an anti-Semite. On the contrary, if anyone sticks up for Jewish people, it's Fernando Uribe. By the way, did Phil Cohen go to the campus of Jihad University? You know, Upper West Side of Manhattan, you know, Columbia University. Did Phil Cohen leave his cozy little townhouse in Hoboken and venture up to Jihadist University on the Upper West Side of Manhattan? No, of course not. But you know who did? Fernando Uribe. Don't believe me? Just do a simple search on Twitter, on Facebook, and Instagram. You can find tons of videos of Fernando Uribe at Columbia University denouncing the jihadists at Columbia University. You can see tons of videos of Fernando Uribe standing up for Jewish people, Jewish faculty members, Jewish students. Phil Cohen? Yeah, he's nowhere to be found. But yet somehow this dipshit has the audacity to throw accusations at Fernando Uribe. Phil, if you're going to bitch and moan about Fernando Uribe, do me a favor. Don't bitch and moan to other people. Bitch and moan to me. My phone number is public record. My email is public record. You could have, again, I don't want to sort of make the accusation here. You know, only your wife will know. But if you had a set in between your legs, you would just contact me directly and you would find out very quickly I'm a lot of things, but an anti-Semite is not one of them. Because if anybody sticks up for Jewish people, especially in the media echo chamber in New Jersey and in Hudson County, it's Fernando Uribe. It's Fernando Uribe going to Jihadist University on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, standing up for Jewish people, for standing in front of protesters and making fun of these jihadists. Is Phil Cohen doing that? Of course not. Phil Cohen would rather virtue signal and somehow make you believe that Donald Trump is the source of all your problems in Hoboken, when we all know it's incompetent shitheads like Phil Cohen with his voting record. So, Phil, if you want to take shots at my appearance, good, have at it. I have a huge head like yours. Well, not as large as yours. Okay? Listen, I don't have the most attractive nose, nowhere near as unattractive as yours, but hey, if you want to take shots, cool. But one thing I'm not going to do is be like, oh, well, Phil Cohen's just anti-Cuban or anti-Hispanic. No, Phil, if you're self-conscious about your nose, and why wouldn't you be? I mean, if I woke up looking like that, I'd get a rhinoplasty as well. But no, Phil, when I wake up and if people want to take jabs at my appearance, I don't just go for the low-hanging fruit and be like, oh, well, Fernando's a blank phobe or a blankist. No, I'm an adult, Phil. I'm not a child like you. I'm not a man-child like you. Okay? I mean, I feel bad for your wife that has to wake up next to you every morning and look at that and deal with your infantile antics. But again, Phil, if you have a problem with me, come see me. I'm not a hard man to find. When you see me at political events, don't walk the other way. I mean, I know when you arrive because your nose gets there before you do. So I know when you're at political events. I also know because I can see your head, all 33 pounds of it. But if you have an issue with Fernando, just come see me. Again. And for a guy with as much life experience as you, for a guy in his late 70s, you would think that he would know, hey, if I have an issue with someone, I go talk to them. Have conversations. Not go bitching and moaning to people. How is that even remotely becoming of a public official? It makes you a bitch. which we all know you are. I don't mind calling you that. I'm sorry, let me guess. What? Is calling you a bitch anti-Semitic too? Really? Phil, if that's all you live for, I feel sorry for you. There's plenty of reasons to dislike Phil Cohen. His voting record, his grandstanding, his pandering. But folks, being Jewish is not a reason to dislike Phil Cohen. Being Jewish or practicing the Jewish faith is not a reason to dislike anybody. That's dreadful. I don't condone that. But you know who stands up for Jewish people? Not Phil Cohen, Fernando Uribe. Again, folks, the video is there. I don't have to provide it to you. A simple Google search will tell you that. So to Phil Cohen, again, you're on my radar, honey. And trust me, for a lot of people, that's not a good thing. So know your place and know your role, because Fernando Uribe is the wrong person to pick a fight with online. You're not going to you're really not going to like the result. So first and last warning, keep my name out of your mouth. The reason I don't keep your name out of my mouth is because you continue to be a shitty public official. When you stop being a shitty public official, maybe then I'll stop talking about Phil Cohen. Oh, and by the way, yeah, I'm having some fun at your expense. Ooh, that's what's called comedy and humor. That's what people do on podcasts. Why don't you start one? Oh, that's right. That would require you to have, I don't know, what's called integrity. You know, that 4-syllable word you struggle with, integrity. We all know you don't have any. Your voting record shows that, and so does your grandstanding. Phil, do better, for God's sakes. You're a grown man. Act like one. It's not that difficult. And those are my final thoughts. Folks, before we call it a night here, obviously I want to thank everyone for another successful month of August in 2025. 48,000 plus views, all organic, folks, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, as well as LinkedIn, YouTube as well. Great traffic, folks, all organic. I appreciate everyone that tunes in every single week and downloads the program, that shares it on their social media, that makes it a point to show support for fearless independent journalism, which is what you can always rely on here on Jersey First TV. To all my friends, family, neighbors, colleagues, classmates, even the haters, because I know you all watch. You can't help yourselves. I appreciate you doing that and making this a part of your weekly news media consumption. And that's our show for this week, folks. Once again, I want to thank my guest tonight, Dini Ajmani, Hoboken Mayoral candidate, for a very lively and very insightful conversation tonight. If you missed any part of it, download the episode. Again, make sure you like us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram and X. Of course, subscribe to us on YouTube. And whether you get your podcast on Spotify or SoundCloud, download it, folks, and check out all the great content we bring you every single week here on Jersey First TV. And folks, I can't say enough what a privilege it is to come to you every single week here on the broadcast and represent Jersey First TV, front and center right here, always educating and advocating for the residents of our great city here in New Jersey during this election cycle. Folks, again, I'll continue to be your trusted source for fearless independent media and provide you excellent journalism like nobody else does here in Garden State Media. Folks, it's always Real Talk with Fernando Uribe via Jersey First TV. Folks, once again, we appreciate you tuning in tonight. Again, please party responsibly. Back to school. Please drive safely, folks, as our kids will be going back to school. Make sure you're careful on crosswalks. Make sure you're careful with all the school crossing guards who have a tough job every week. Shout out to all the parents sending your kids back to school, to all the students, to all my students, past and present. Have a great school year. Work hard, study hard. Make sure you work with your teachers and professors. Don't work against them, work with them, and continue to make your learning experience a pleasant one as we begin the 2025-2026 academic school calendar year. And always remember, folks, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always Real Talk here on Jersey First TV. I'll continue to be the generational talent in Garden State Media because, folks, my level of honesty, now more than ever, is truly necessary in this era of journalistic deception. That's right, folks. When the establishment media continues to lie to you, guess who won't? That's right. It's me, Fernando Uribe. Folks, enjoy the NFL as it returns this Thursday as my Cowboys visit the shithole of the United States, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to take on their division rivals, the Philadelphia Eagles, to kick off the 2025 season. Of course, best of luck to all the locals. And of course, fans, please party responsibly. Uber and Lyft it. Make sure that you arrive alive, whether it's to your Sunday fun day destination. Make sure you arrive alive when you get home later after Sunday fun day's done with. So, folks, again, enjoy really the baseball pennant races are heating up here in September. Enjoy the NFL as it returns. Enjoy, of course, some preseason hockey coming back in September. Enjoy the college football. Nice to see Rutgers off to a 1-0 start to kick off this season. Folks, again, take care of yourselves, each other. Thanks for stopping by. And always remember, stay classy, everyone.